What's up, gamers? This is another Godforge video. If Slayers delete enemies, Disruptors delete their game plan. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Disruptors. Now, this is the fifth of a 5-part series where we talked about each one of the archetypes and my top legendary heroes in those archetypes. Now, if you haven't seen any of the other videos, don't forget that next week we're going to do my first ever tier list. So if you're interested in that or have liked any of the videos that I've made so far, please consider subscribing. I'm setting a goal where I want to get to 500 subscribers by the time we get to early access. I really want to put it at 1,000, but we're a little ways off. So the goal right now is at least 500 subscribers. So if you could subscribe, that'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. Either way, let's get into our top 4 disruptors in Godforge right now. Now you'll notice as we go, Izanami is not going to be a part of this because she is still a work in progress. So I don't really want to put her in here until we have her kit confirmed, and then we'll do a video on Izanami. And then you also will notice that Loki's not in here. Now, if you see in the top right, I've already done a video breaking down his kit when it changed recently. And honestly, he probably wouldn't even be in my top 4 disruptors to begin with. But anyway, let's jump into our first one. And our first disruptor is Hades. So on his basic, he attacks one enemy with a 30% chance to place sleep for 1 turn. On his core, he attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to place despair for 1 turn. Also places lock ultimate for 1 turn on enemies under curse, which you'll see in his passive. For his ultimate, he attacks all enemies 2 times. The first attack will decrease the target's turn meter by 20%. The second attack will place speed down 2 for 2 turns. Also places initiative down 2 for 2 turns on enemies under curse. And if you're wondering where that curse comes from, it comes from his passive, which is at the start of this hero's turn, places curse 2 for 1 turn on the target with the highest attack. When an enemy under curse is defeated, places curse 2 for 1 turn on a living enemy with the highest attack. Curse 2 cannot be dispelled or resisted, and he has a leader bonus of 25% speed in arena battles. Next, we're going to talk about Pazuzu. Now, on his basic, he attacks one enemy with a 75% chance to place accuracy down 2 for 2 turns and a 75% chance to remove 1 random buff. For his core, he attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to place corrupt on each target for 2 turns. If the target is aligned with order, place fear on the target for 1 turn. For his ultimate, he attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit has a 50% chance to place vulnerable to acid and curse 2 on each target for 2 turns. And then his passive is that when an enemy gains a buff, increase this hero's turn meter by 10%. If the enemy gains 3 buffs in 1 turn, this hero gains an extra turn. All right, next we will talk about Perun. Now, on Perun's basic, he attacks one enemy 2 times with a 50% chance to place speed down 2 on the target for 2 turns. For his core, he attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to reduce the turn meter of each target by 20%. On his ultimate, he attacks 7 times at random. Each hit has a 35% chance to decrease the target's turn meter by 10%. Additional attacks against the same target reduce turn meter by 5%. So it sounds like 7 times at random. If the same target gets hit more than 1 time by that from those 7 hits, the first one does 10% and the rest will do 5% turn meter reduction. And then for his passive, when an enemy hero has their turn meter decreased, increase this hero's turn meter by 4%. And he is a leader bonus in arena also with 25 plus 25 initiative. And then last and maybe least, we have Wang, who attacks all enemies on his basic, then has a 35% chance to place speed down 2 on each target for 1 turn. He also attacks all enemies on his core with a 75% chance to place a random debuff of either a defense down 2, attack down 2, accuracy down 2, or resistance down 2 on each target for 2 turns. For his ultimate, it's another attacks all enemies, then has a 50% chance to place lock core and lock passive on each target for 2 turns. And then his passive is that it increases this hero's initiative by 2%, stacking up to 30% when placing a debuff. And then he has a leader bonus of 19 plus 90% initiative in all battles. The thing about disruptors is that you've probably heard it from other content creators. I know Adam did a video. We talked about it on the most recent Podforge, that there are other archetypes outside of disruptor that do a great job of control. We've got a Slayer in Wukong who does a lot of turn meter reduction. We've got a defender in Athena who does disables. We've got a brawler in Grendel who also does a good disable on his core. So it's not that these disruptors aren't good or won't have a place, but that's the thing is we don't know exactly what content we're going to face in the game. So you'll probably see a lot of these disruptors lower on everyone's tier list or on everyone's most wanted list, and I think that'll be the same for me. But we really don't have the complete picture, and everything is subject to change. So there might be some of these disruptors that really shine in certain content, and they do have some unique abilities, which we'll go over in a second, that could really make a big difference for your account. But again, we need to see the full picture before we can really know how great these disruptors are. So let's talk about what makes each one of these disruptors good. And we'll start with Hades. Now, although his basic kind of seems useless with a 30% chance to place sleep, really it's about curse. And curse is what his passive does and really sets up uh, a lot of his kit, including one of the more unique features, which is lock ultimate. He also has AoE speed down 2, which could be very, very useful. For Pazuzu, it's almost the opposite of Hades when it comes to his basic, because I think it's a very useful basic when it has a chance to remove one random buff, which books up to 100% chance to do that. So I think that's great. Also, AoE with a 3 pack of debuffs on his ultimate is pretty awesome. And then he has a great passive against a buffing team. But the core works against his passive, so there's a little bit of anti synergy there. Now, Perun, he looks like the turn meter reducer, though how reliable it will be, it'll be reliable on his core, but on his ultimate, although he's hitting 7 times, it's a pretty low chance, and it decreases the amount of turn meter that is taken away. He also has a speed down on his basic, which is really good, and passive really works with the kit when he increases his own turn meter based on decreasing the enemy's turn meter. So it's basically you get double for that. Now for Yan Wang, I did joke about him maybe being the least of these, and I don't know if he actually is, but we also joked about him being the ultimate disruptor because you cannot pick which debuffs he puts out on his core, so it could really mess up your plans. But for what he's got going for him is one, all three of his attacks are AOE's. So he's got three AOE's across the board. He also has a unique lock core and lock passive on his ultimate, which we haven't seen from anyone else, I think. And then his passive really works well with his kit because he's putting out a lot of debuffs even if you can't pick them. So he will up his initiative pretty quickly. Now, like I said earlier, we don't know what content is going to be in the game. So we cannot, it's really hard to judge how valuable these disruptors are going to be. But if I had to pick one out of the four, I might have to go with Pazuzu as my favorite. Anytime you can remove a random buff on your basic, I think that that can be huge. I also think being able to place vulnerable acid and curse on his ultimate is awesome as an AoE hit. And then that passive, if you run up against a team that places a lot of buffs, he's going to go and he's going to keep going and take them down before they can really stack them up. But with that said, I don't think any of these disruptors are going to break my top 5, maybe not even my top 10. But you'll have to tune in next week when I do my tier list so we can really see where everyone ranks out. I'm Brad with BradBodGaming. I really hope you enjoy this. And until next time, I will talk to you later.